Hello and welcome to Channels Book Club. My name is Akunyili, and it's always exciting to be on this show. Now we've got a special one for you today. Remember Dora Akunyili, that amazing woman. Every boy, every girl, every young person in this country should be acquainted with the story of that woman. She's one of the great heroes of contemporary Nigeria. She gave her life to her cause. And, oh, Dora was Dora. Now, Dora's daughter, Chidiogo Akunyili, wrote a book that tells the story of Dora. What can be more exciting than that? A lot of these are heroes. They just pass on and nobody's telling their story. Nobody has written about them, no books about them, and they just go on, and that's the end. But fortunately, we have a very good example here of such a person's story being told and being properly documented by no other person than her daughter. Now let's get to meet with her and enjoy the conversation we had with her reviewing the book. Enjoy this.
Chidiogo Akunyili is a speaker, consultant, and author. Akunyili is the founder of She Roars, an organization committed to coaching women of color around the world to connect to their intuition and purpose. She is the daughter of the late Dora Akunyili, former Director General of the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC. Her mother was well known for her great achievements in the fight against adulterated drugs in Nigeria. Akunyili, in a memo that can also be considered an autobiography, shared the behind the scenes of her mother's life in a book titled I Am Because We Are. She joins Channels Book Club to discuss the book.
Chidiogo, nice to have you on Channels Book Club. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here with you.
It's a pleasure to have you. Well, where do I start? I mean, you've written a fascinating book, a much awaited, much needed book that tells the story of your mother. Well done and congratulations on that. It's an amazing achievement.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to share it with the world and to have so many people receive it.
Okay, great. So the first question, I mean, so many things to talk about, very little time, but I mean, one can describe this book as a memoir or an autobiography, a memoir, more like it. But you wrote it on behalf of your mom, or did you work on your mom's manuscript? How did you come about this? It was something I was curious about as I read.
That's a beautiful question, and I presume it comes from the fact that the book is written in my mother's voice, Dora Akunyili. She's telling her story. As you know, my mom has written, you might not know, she's authored 2 books, one back when she was a pharmacist in the early 90s, and another is on her war against fake drugs while the DG of NAFDAC. But this memoir is entirely different. It's a story. And I started writing it after my mother passed, and it was part of a desire to share powerful stories of people and things that have impacted and touched people, because I believe that stories have a power to transform so much and has throughout history. And I wanted people to receive her story with the same passion that she lived. And I felt that for that to happen, I didn't want to come in between and constantly my mother or Dora. I wanted her to speak because she has this energy. And that's the genesis of writing in my mother's voice, from interviewing people, talking to friends, family, memory, and ultimately presenting what I thought was the most accurate narration of her life from birth to death.
Wow, it's very creative. I'm not sure I've read a book like this, to be honest. Very creative method you picked there. Now, your mother is a legend, almost a mythical figure, Dora Akunyili. She's somebody that a lot of us with daughters will point out and say, that's the kind of woman you should become. That's the kind of woman you should try to become. Before we dig into this book, or as we do so, I'd like to hear from you. What is it like, or what was it like being the daughter of such a woman?
In the early phases of writing this book, that felt almost like a big theme, being Dora's daughter. And at a part of the book, I do come in and I talk about how I'll arrive at the airport, or I'm in the streets in Italy, or pick any country, and you run into a Nigerian, and the moment your last name sort of is unearthed, it would be, are you related to that Nafdaku man, or Dora's daughter? So I would say that has been the story of the latter part of being Dora's daughter. And there's a earlier story, which has just been Dora's daughter without the legend around that, what that means. So it's been a journey, and I would say it's been privileged to have learned and been nurtured by someone who went on to nurture so many, who has such a capacity. And I think we have 4 girls, and we all understand the privilege of having been her daughters. And this story is part of my way of continuing to appreciate her.
Well, I wish we had an hour to talk, Chidiogo, but we don't. Now, she was an incredible woman. This book, I thought I knew her until I read this book. Now, there is a part of her life that a lot of us know, Dora, Navdak, I mean, the fight against drug barons and, and those who were behind counterfeiting drugs and all that. But when I read biographies or autobiographies or memoirs, I'm always particular about the story behind the story, if you get what I mean. And this book gave me a lot of that. The Dora that we all got to know was a manifestation of her experiences as a child. And the early part of this book, I read about how she grew up with her parents. She was taken to her grandmother's village to live with her because her parents felt that will help to shape her, and how she initially detested that experience, but it ended up making her to become the person she ultimately became, and all that background story. Tell us a bit about that. For viewers out there who are curious about this book, tell us a bit about that part of the book that they will read once they pick up this book.
In telling her story, you're absolutely right in identifying that you might think you know her, because we tend to think we know people that are so public. But a person's story is so much greater than that which you see on the outside, and also greater than that which I see as her daughter. So I wanted to tell the multiplicity of her story, that her friends know, that I know, that her coworkers, that her superiors, that the country, the people whose lives she's touched, etc. And that our stories often begin with our origin stories. And that was really important to me, because she had an origin story that is shared with many millions of us, and in different capacities. She was just a regular girl who went through incredible difficulties. And one of them started with her parents saying, you can be tougher if we send you to the village. So she spent a big chunk of her life from the age of 9, having gone from Makodi to Anambra to Iswafia, where she was with her grandmother. She went through the Biafra War. Her family was displaced. She went through a lot of loss of, really beloved ones. I don't like to give too much away. So the invitation patient is to know that whatever struggle, whatever your story is, it does not limit one, because if anything, she took all those challenges and adversities and turned it into the fire that you got to know. That fire that is in her was fanned in these experiences of just hardship and struggles, which so many of us relate to, being in environments that are quite challenging more often than not. And also, it inspired her to do whatever she could to ensure that no one had to go through unnecessary suffering or pain. And in this case specifically, you might remember that she lost her younger sister, Nwogo, to fake insulin. And Nwogo was like a daughter to her. And so it goes. So I really wanted us to meet the girl, the young woman, and all that went into shaping this woman we got to know, that you might know, you start off with saying we want our daughters to be Dora, but perhaps she's already on a pedestal. But what does it mean to meet her at our level? Because she was us. And the title of the book is very deliberate. I am because we are. And it's a story of us.
Good one. I like the fact that in the book you find the good, the bad, and the ugly. For me, that's how memoirs or biographies should be written. Yeah, so that was part of the bad or the ugly, yeah, part of the book. But even in reading that, as traumatic as the experience, reading that, learning that about her was, I think her strength also came out in that part of the story, because I could see there that while her body was failing her, her spirit was strong and her character was still there. Of course, there was a period where she spoke about how she began to lose her temper so quickly, and when the pressure of the news of her health really struck her, and she became a little bit moody and all that. But even in telling that, what I enjoyed about that honesty was there was still a message, there was still something to learn, from her story and her life, even then at the lowest times. So well done on that. Tell me a bit about yourself, Chidiogo. Was it inevitable that you were the one that would write this book of all her children? You seem to have a passion for writing.
In her deathbed, I couldn't be with her. So the last chapters of her life, was really raw, and it was more or less a transcript of my sister talking about the last hours and the last days. So there's a lot of just raw emotions that I almost didn't touch. So this is to say, my last interactions with her were written. And there's something about that, because I hadn't really written my mother. We didn't really text, something, back then, you don't really text your parents. So I realized that we hadn't really read each other, and writing is a huge part of my self-expression. And I wrote her these long emails day after day. And I like to think that that was where she got to meet the part of me that expresses a little better through writing. And I like to think that that might be why she invited me in death. I like to trust that I received this call from her to write her story. And I'd been paying attention as someone who just likes to go quiet and listen. And I heard that invitation. I like to think it was because she experienced that I had that capacity of expressing difficult emotions or difficult thoughts in writing. Whatever, who knows? This is a theory. Ultimately, I said yes. And that's what matters. And I trust that different people over time will tell different parts of her story. This is the one that I said yes to. And my hope is that it would inspire and continue to inspire all that is to come.
Well, thank you, Chidiogo. Definitely it will inspire a lot of people out there. Thank you for writing this. I was excited when I saw it because I'm very concerned that a lot of our stories are not being written and not being told well enough, particularly of those that I like to describe as the real heroes of our story. Thank you very much, and it's been a pleasure having you on Channels Book Club. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure is all mine. Thank you. God bless you. Take care.
Time is never our friend on the show. So much more in that book. Get your hands on a copy and get acquainted with the story of the incredible Dora Akunyili. May her soul rest in peace. Now, up next, before we round up the show, is a reading. Get to meet with our author and enjoy the book.
Hi, I am Steve Osaway. I'm from Benin City. I'm a biochemist and a poet. And I'm here to share some of my poems with you. I've published a number of poem books, self-published online on Amazon and Kobo, and on other platforms coming very soon. But the particular one I want to read with you today is entitled If Time Were to Wait, Blood and Sweat. It is the second book in my Time Were to Wait series. Now, this book was inspired by someone I'll call the best boss I ever worked with. And his name is Toby Oduyale. He's the CEO of Winelight Analytical Systems. And when I just came to Lagos, freshly from my youth service from 2004 to 2005, I worked in Winelight Analytical Systems, which was the very first job that I got in Lagos, the first proper job I got in Lagos. And I was a greenhorn, you know. I didn't really understand what I was doing. And Mr. Toby Oduyale really very patiently, painstakingly put me through a lot of things. He built me up. It was like a training ground for me. I spent 2 years in his company, and I'm still benefiting from my experience with him. So I tapped from that experience. I generated a lot of quotes, a lot of inspiring quotes, a lot of inspiring poems, and they are the ones that I've put together to form this series of books that I'm going to be sharing from today. Like I said, the title of the book is If Time Were to Wait, Blood and Sweat. It contains inspiring quotes and poems that will make any reader see and feel like he can achieve anything, can achieve any goal, and achieve any dreams. So I'm going to be sharing some of the poems with you, and you understand what I'm saying. Poem number 1, stopping halfway is not as good as half a loaf of bread. It is said that half a loaf of bread is better than none, which means half a loaf of bread is better than something. But if you start a journey of accomplishing a goal or a dream and stop halfway, you're not going to benefit anything from that. So that's why I've written this quote: stopping halfway is not as good as half a loaf of bread. Second quote: lose eyes at the back of your head. Eyes at the back of your head, and all you see is the way forward. It's like we have eyes at the back of our heads, and that's why we look backwards. But if we lose those eyes, imagine plucking the eyes out. You only see the way forward, and you only move forward, and you only be able to make progress. Now, I'm going to be taking some poems from a chapter entitled Salt. This is the first one. To some, work is like salt in food, and life is never tasteless. To some, work is like salt in food, and life is never tasteless. In this poem, life is the soup and work is the salt. When you put salt in soup, the taste comes out better. So smart work actually makes life sweeter for people who work smart. Hardness of labor distances itself from people who work smart. It is said that hard work, it is not hard work that makes one successful. It is smart work. So when you work smart, you find out that the hardness of work is going to be far away from you. While you are not working, while you are not sweating in vain, and not really reaping anything, doing too much work and reaping something little. You'll be working smart. You'll be hitting the iron while it is red hot, and you'll be achieving results. More now than ever, location of a business poses little hindrance to accessing it. Meet people's needs and they will come to you much easier with the click. The title of this poem is The Click. Now, what I'm trying to say is that the world is a small place right now. You can reach anywhere in the world using just one click. You can click a button and your product will be promoted all over the world. So I'm trying to encourage people to go online, take their businesses online, take their efforts online, take their hustle online by clicking just with some few clicks, and you will find out that your product will reach so many places in the world. The poem that follows is also encouraging the same thing. Tension from launching online products may threaten your heart. But watch out for dangerous heartbeat skips that come when sales figures touch the sky. It is a follow-up to the poem I just read. With a few clicks, you can reach so many places in the world. Your product will be promoted to so many interested buyers, so many interested patronizers who will patronize you, and you will find out that with just a few clicks, you are going to sell so much of your product, you are going to have so much patronage, and you are going to make a lot of money. And it's going to be much, much faster than physically promoting your work. The next poem is also a follow-up to the click. Few clicks sacrificed at night may earn you millions in the morning. Few clicks sacrificed at night may earn you millions in the morning. I've experienced a situation where I promoted a book with just a click. It was at night. That's why I actually wrote this quote like this. It was at night, promoted that click, and I went to bed. And when I woke up in the morning, I saw a lot of responses, and I was really happy. So this is also an encouragement to anyone who has something, a product, who has a product to share, a product to sell, a service to sell. I'm encouraging you to go online. Take it online, and with just a few clicks, you will go further than you can ever imagine. The title of this book, again, is If Time Were to Wait, Blood and Sweat. It is the second book in my If Time Were to Wait book series. It is available as e-copy on Amazon and ebook, and also as print-on-demand book. Thank you very much.
Imagining all life has to offer a restlessly wide-eyed boy, and so I pray that the child doesn't get lost in the man. Hey, 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 glory, oh, glory, oh, glory, hey, glory, hey, glory, oh. You guys are wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
I hope you enjoyed that. This is where we wrap up the show today. As always, we'll be very delighted to get your feedback through any of our social media platforms. displayed on your screen. My name is Olakunle Kasumo. Remember, one great book can change your life. Bye-bye.